John Madden, Pat.
This is a CBS News special report. Reporting live from Reykjavik, Iceland, here is Dan Rather.
Thank you very much.
President Reagan has just started to make his departure statement from the Keflavik NATO base. We go live now to the President's departing remarks.
Forces and my fellow Americans. Thank you all. It's good to feel so at home. And I want to apologize for being so late. As you know, General Secretary Gorbachev and I were to have concluded our talks at noon after more than 7.5 hours of meetings over the last 2 days. But when the hour for departure arrived, we both felt that further discussions would be valuable. So I called Nancy and told her I wouldn't be home for dinner. She said she understood. In about 6.5 hours, I'll find out. Well, the talks we've just concluded were hard and tough, and yet I have to say extremely useful. We spoke about arms control, human rights, and regional conflicts. And of course, Mr. Gorbachev and I were frank about our disagreements. We had to be. In several critical areas, we made more progress than we anticipated when we came to Iceland. We moved toward agreement on drastically reduced numbers of intermediate-range nuclear missiles in both Europe and Asia. We approached agreement on sharply reduced strategic arsenals for both our countries. We made progress in the area of nuclear testing, but there remained, at the end of our talks, one area of disagreement. While both sides seek reduction in the number of nuclear missiles and warheads threatening the world, the Soviet Union insisted that we sign an agreement that would deny to me and to future presidents for 10 years the right to develop, test, and deploy a defense against nuclear missiles for the people of the free world. This we could not and will not do. So late this afternoon, I made to the General Secretary an entirely new proposal. A 10-year delay in deployment of SDI in exchange for the complete elimination of all ballistic missiles from the respective arsenals of both nations. So long as both the United States and the Soviet Union prove their good faith by destroying nuclear missiles year by year, we would not deploy SDI. The General Secretary said he would consider our offer, but only if we restricted all work on SDI to laboratory research, which would have killed our defensive shield. We came to Iceland to advance the cause of peace, and though we put on the table the most far-reaching arms control proposal in history, the General Secretary rejected it. However, we made great strides in Iceland in resolving most of our differences, and we're going to continue the effort. But this brings me to my main reason in coming to Keflavik today, to see you all and express my gratitude. Gratitude for a job well done. I hope you all know the importance of your mission here. Iceland has always held a strategic position in the Atlantic, commanding, if you will, the sea between the old world and the new. Since this is Columbus Day, I have to be careful of this, but many of those who believe that the Vikings were the first Europeans to discover the Americas hold that the ancient Norse sailors first heard of North American from an Icelander. And during World War II, Iceland played a crucial role in the battle for freedom. Early in the war, German U-boats began to exact a devastating toll, including the shipping that supplied the British people with food from the United States. Between March and December 1941, the Germans sank ships totaling more than 1 million tons. Churchill watched with growing disquiet as his nation was pushed closer and closer to starvation. In April of 1941, the British established bases on this island for escort groups and aircraft. In July, we joined them with the consent of the Icelandic authorities with bases of our own. These operations, staged from this very island, proved decisive in the balance of the entire struggle. In Churchill's words, the escort groups became ever more efficient, and as their power grew, that of the U-boats declined. Europe was saved to continue the struggle for freedom. I cite all this history because if Iceland was crucial to the cause of freedom then, it is even more important today. The U.S. and Iceland are joined together as members of NATO. And here you are, thousands of miles from home, closer indeed to the Soviet naval bases on the Kola Peninsula than to our own east coast. And in view of those naval bases and other potential threats, you serve as a vanguard for Iceland, the United States, and all the NATO allies. You monitor military air traffic, you track submarines, and you monitor shipping movements in the vital sea lanes between the United States, Iceland, and Europe. You perform all these tasks with efficiency and dedication, in short, with a keen sense of duty. And ladies and gentlemen of our armed forces, on behalf of a grateful Commander-in-Chief, I salute you.
President Reagan speaking live at the Keflavik NATO base here in Iceland as he prepares to depart after a very interesting and, in the words of Secretary of State Schultz, sweeping, important, and substantial potential agreements were reached.
I can't resist telling you a little story that I've just told the Marine Guard at the embassy. The story has to do with saluting. I was a second lieutenant of horse cavalry back in the World War II days. As I told the Admiral, I wound up flying a desk for the Army Air Force. And so I know all the rules about not saluting in civilian clothes and so forth, and when you should or shouldn't. But then when I got this job, and I would be approaching Air Force One or Marine One, and those Marines would come to a salute, and I, knowing that I'm in civilian clothes, I would nod and say hello and think they would drop their hand, and they wouldn't. They just stood there. So one night over at the commandant's quarters, Marine commandant's quarters in Washington, and I was getting a couple of highballs, and I didn't know what to do. So I said to the commandant, I said, look, I know all the rules about saluting in civilian clothes and all, but if I'm the Commander-in-Chief, there ought to be a regulation that would permit me to return a salute. And I heard some words of wisdom. He said, I think if you did, no one would say anything.
Well, we're in the 1980s, the way the world is and the way television is, and the way summits go. At the same time, President Reagan was speaking, saying his goodbyes at the NATO base. The General Secretary of the Communist Party in the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, was continuing his news conference at a theater in downtown Reykjavik, Iceland, about 35 minutes drive from where the president was. Now, Gorbachev has been going on for some few minutes. These are among the major points he has been making. He says that this was a major meeting, that there was pointed debate with President Reagan. That was his word. That the negotiations in Geneva, the long-standing arms negotiations, are at an impasse. And now a direct quote from Gorbachev: we see clearly that all of us are now approaching a new stage, a point of no return, at which a new stage in the arms race might begin with unpredictable military and political consequences. Unquote, Mikhail Gorbachev. That's the story of the Iceland summit. In brief, up to now. We'll have complete details later in the evening, but for now, we return to professional football.
This has been a CBS News special report.